It's a Good Friday, is it not? Food and drink are both ingested. They both go into the stomach and they're digested. They both deliver nutrition to the body through the bloodstream. But there are some important differences, right? One difference is that fluids need no chewing and little digesting. That's why the elements in liquids go quickly into the bloodstream and have a more immediate effect on the body. If you doubt the conclusion, just ask a mother who let her child drink a can of soda. Another difference between the two is that liquid is more urgently needed by the body than solids. And that's why the human body can go quite a bit longer without food than water. After oxygen, water is the second most urgent need of the body. Thirst is created when the water volume of the body falls below a certain threshold. The brain then signals thirst, and we reach for that drink of water. Keeping that in mind, that leaves no question that Jesus was critically dehydrated before he was even nailed to the cross. Consider the situation. He's arrested in the middle of the night. Then they put him before a highly irregular and probably illegal, certainly unethical, but probably also an illegal religious court. There before those religious rulers, the men who were supposed to fear God the most, they lied about him, condemned him, mocked him, spit on him, slapped him, and punched him. And as if the torment of those who wanted him dead was not enough, at sunrise, Peter, the self-proclaimed most loyal disciple, denies even knowing him. And Jesus knows that happens. His captors then deliver him to Pilate. Pilate, who wants absolutely nothing to do with all this controversy, could not be more ambivalent. Pilate elects to defer this hot potato and sends Jesus over to King Herod. Herod is at first enthusiastic because Jesus is rumored to be a spectacular personality. But when his expectation is not met, and Jesus says nothing before this wicked man, Herod becomes surly. It is there at Herod's court, with Herod's soldiers, that they dress Jesus up in a mock royal robe. And they do this purely to humiliate him on his way back to Pilate. And can you imagine the cruelty, the injustice, the wickedness that humanity is capable of? You can see it all on display right there. When Jesus gets back and faces Pilate again, what he really faces is politically rigged justice. And that is to say, he faces injustice. He faces a corrupt court. And then, and only then, after this point, the real suffering begins. It is possible that at some point before the whipping, before the cross carrying, and before the crucifixion, that someone gives Jesus a drink of water. It's possible, but given the way he is treated, it seems rather likely that no one was looking out for his physical well-being at this point, doesn't it? Jesus has probably not had a drink, probably not had a sip of water since dinner the night before. He is thirsty. He is thirsty. So then, why do we read this in Matthew chapter 27, verses 33 to 34? I'll read it to you. Matthew 27, verses 33 to 34. Why do we read this? And when they came to a place called Golgotha, which means place of a skull, they offered him wine to drink mixed with gall. But when he tasted it, he would not drink it. He's bleeding profusely. He's exhausted. He's deeply bruised all over his body. In just a few moments, he will be executed by one of the most brutal methods known to man in the history of humankind, crucifixion. This is the last stop before the hammer drives the nails. Why not take any bit of comfort available? Why refuse this drink? He's thirsty, isn't he? And to answer that, we must try to understand what this drink is. What is wine mixed with gall? It's a challenging subject. It's hard to define, but we can get close. It could well be that this wine mixed with gall is both a drink meant for comfort and for torment, meant for different things by different people. By some, meant for comfort, but with the gall added, by some, meant for mocking and for torment. As if to say, even in the comfort and the relief of a drink, we're going to make that hard for you. You're so despicable. We despise you so much. We want you to die so desperately. We want you to be tormented on the way out so badly that we're going to make this harder for you. You see, it is well noted that the Jews would offer wine with a seed of frankincense in it to those condemned to die, because the herb would act as an anesthetic and numb the pain. It is even possible that this mixture was given by Jewish women who had compassion on those who were being executed and who wanted to apply the Proverbs because they knew the Scriptures. Proverbs 31, 6-7 says, "Give strong drink to the one who is perishing, and wine to those in bitter distress. Let them drink and forget their poverty and remember their misery no more." It could be that these women were compassionately trying to apply that Scripture. In Mark's Gospel, Mark writes that this is wine mixed with myrrh rather than wine mixed with gall. He doesn't use the word gall, he just says wine mixed with myrrh. And myrrh would have been a precious ointment along the lines of frankincense, so myrrh would have had the same mildly numbing effect as frankincense, and so this is probably meant by some to comfort Jesus. But what is gall? The word that Matthew uses. Gall is thought to be a bitter herb, one that is potentially poisonous and increases thirst. Kind of like drinking salt water when you're thirsty. Even though it is water, that salt content, you better stay away from it, because that salt content will make you more thirsty and dry out your body. And what should we make of this? Well, it is possible that this tradition of compassion was also used to mock, as I mentioned earlier. Perhaps the soldiers or the religious rulers said, okay, sure, you can give them something to drink. Yeah, go ahead and comfort them. But wait a minute. Before you give that to him, let me put some of this in there too. And they put some gall in to torment him further. And really, no matter how it's meant, for the tormented, dying Jesus of Nazareth, with the cross on his back, or on Simon Cyrene, who's nearby, because he's so devastated physically that Jesus can't even carry the cross. For that man, that Jesus of Nazareth, it is still a liquid that Jesus could have received momentary comfort from. But here he is in terminal condition, each second full of torment, without any other means of relief, and yet he refuses to quench his thirst. He refuses to drink. Apparently, Jesus does not want to be numbed. He wants no part of pain killing, no matter how mild or effective. There are no shortcuts for him in this ordeal. He will not see this as simply or primarily as something that people are doing to him. He refuses to think of it that way. He's not going to refuse or to accept. He's not going to refuse to accept what is happening to him in this moment. He's not going to play the spoiled child that crosses his or her arms and says, I'll do it, but I really don't mean it. He refuses to approach it that way. No, this is his Father's will. that he carry this cross. It's his Father's plan. Yes, wicked people are doing this to him. Yes, they're wickedly doing something wicked to him, but God has a greater purpose in it, and Jesus is going to embrace the plan of his Father no matter what. And all of that brings us back around to drinks. Jesus rejects the wine / myrrh / gall cocktail. But there's another drink that he will not refuse. You see, he is refusing one drink for another. He rejects the wine because he's already imbibing something far, far, far more potent, far more deadly, far more devastating, far more tormenting. The scriptures repeatedly refer to God's wrath as what? As a drink. More specifically, they talk about the cup of God's wrath. Imagine God's punishment for sin, which includes his righteous wrath in the form of a liquid. Imagine a cup or a goblet or a bowl filled to the brim, the kind that you take care to walk slowly, to hold it evenly, to give a little bit of give as you go so that it doesn't spill, because it is filled to the rim. Filled not with wine that, according to Psalm 104:15, God gives to humanity to gladden the heart, not filled with wine, but instead is brimming with that fluid of ultimate punishment. Metaphorically, as a picture of the wrath of God. Oh yes, it is the most lethal drink of all. Now take someone who deserves God's wrath. Take that person and imagine them choking down that drink of God's wrath, of saying, okay, here comes the wrath of God upon me, and I have to receive every bit of it. In fact, there's no way I cannot receive it. I can't get away from it. I'm going to take this wrath. It's coming upon me no matter what, and I'm going to receive it fully. Think of it like a drink. Think of them taking that drink and drinking that deadly cocktail. Can we even begin to fathom how that drink would burn? Can we imagine the sputtering and gagging on that drink? Each gulp would be more deadly and more righteous than the last gulp. Death in its fullness is at the bottom of that drink. Final death, ultimate death. And though it may terrify us, we must also acknowledge that the cup of God's wrath is right. It's what you deserve. It's what I deserve. This cup of wrath, the deadliest drink of all, is the drink that Jesus was drinking on the cross. It was that drink. This was the cup he accepted. He even says so. You remember his arrest, right? There were some dramatics at that arrest. You remember the arrest as the soldiers advanced to arrest Jesus? Peter pulls out a sword. Apparently there was just a couple swords among them, and of course Peter had to have one. He pulls out a sword and cuts off someone's ear. And to this, Jesus picks up the ear, heals the ear, and says this to Peter, and it's recorded by John in his Gospel, chapter 18, verse 11. So Jesus said to Peter, "Put your sword into its sheath. Shall I not drink the cup that the Father has given me?" The entire passion of Christ is summed up in this. Jesus receives the wrath of the Father. He drinks the entire cup of God's wrath. But why? Why does he do that? Here is the answer. Here's the answer of why Jesus drinks the cup of God's wrath. He does that to quench our thirst. You see, he's not thirsty. He knows the Father. He delights in the Father. He enjoys the presence of the Father. He does all things well and walks before the Father righteously. Why does he drink the cup of God's wrath? He does it because we're thirsty. He drinks it so that we could be quenched. What thirst, you may ask? What thirst do you speak of? My desire for things? My craving for wealth? Sort of, but not really. No, not that thirst. It's a deeper yearning that Jesus satisfies. We might say, is it my craving to achieve my bald ambitions? No. Deeper than that. Do you mean my longing for justice in this world when I look around and see how wrong everything it is and that I just long to see the wrong made right? No, it's a deeper hydration that he provides. Then is it my thirst for relationship, my desire for love, which seems to be the most critical human sentiment and connection, love itself? Is it that? No. We have a thirst so deep down that it is the root of all other dryness. All other thirsts flow from this one. When this thirst is quenched, all others are remedied as well. Now follow me here a bit further so you can see what I mean. You see, we're the ones who should drink the cup that Jesus drank. We're the ones that should get the cup of wrath because we've incurred it. We're the ones who told God, no, thank you, God, I'll do life my way. We are those who have gone about life as if God does not exist, as if he was not the great maker, as if we gave life to ourselves, as if his purposes for us matter not, as if whatever we choose to do is just and right as opposed to what he has revealed, as if we're the ones who made up morality and character and what is righteous and what is not. We have sought to define God, to define him, to direct him, to teach him what is right and fair and just. We have sought to point a finger and wag a finger at him and say, no, that's not righteous. This is righteous, what I think is righteous. We have rebelled, and we've called that rebellion good. We deserve the cup that Jesus drank. There's no getting around it. We have all failed to worship and obey him the way that we ought to have done. We have offended the righteous requirements more times than we know or care to think about or care to remember. Therefore, we all get a drink from God. We all get a brimming, steaming cup of God's wrath sitting in front of us. And though we are thirsty, oh so thirsty, deep down thirsty for forgiveness and life and our Creator's love and relationship with him and life with him and purpose in him, though we have it so deep down that it comes out in our pores, and though we misinterpret it and we go away from it and we walk in guilt sometimes, we need it so badly. Though that's the reality of it, we're so thirsty for him. We see that cup of God's wrath looming there, that inescapable and all devastating cup of the wrath of God. And it's the only drink there is. It's the only one provided for us because it's all we deserve. But if you will believe it, you do not have to drink the bitter gall fluid of the wrath of God. If you will believe that Jesus is God's one true Son, here is what happens. In the crucifixion, Jesus reaches over and he takes the cup that you deserve. He carefully brings it to his own lips and he drinks 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 until it's all gone. Every drop, there's none left, no wrath left for us. You see, the drink that killed him grants us life. He drinks and quenches our thirst. I want to ask Doug to come. We're going to sing again in just a moment. And before we sing, we'll partake together. Come to the Lord's table. You know that the Lord gave to us a simple but profound and effective ritual to remember and engage him. It's a special gift to his people. We call it communion or the Lord's table, the Lord's Supper. It is centered, this ritual, this eating and this drinking is centered on what Jesus has done on the cross. He gave his body, he shed his blood. He eats the food and drinks the drink that we should drink. We eat the food and drink the drink that he gives, his body and his shed blood. That is the cup that he drinks. The wrath is what he gets. Now we eat and drink. We eat and drink, and it's life to us. And turn our eyes back on him and what he's done. Think of it. He refused that drink. The wine, the myrrh, the gall mixture. He went without any comfort. Took no comfort so that we would never go without comfort because we have Jesus Christ. He went without comfort so that we would always have his comfort. His discomfort becomes our comfort. He drinks death and we get life. Tonight on this Good Friday, we eat and drink the life we have in him. Let's take a moment and think about the wrath that we were saved from, the wrath that we deserved. Just consider how the Lord took that cup from in front of you, took it on himself, drank it all the way down, and so that now we can always be comforted. And there's no wrath left for us, but only life in Christ Jesus. Would you bow your head with me and just take a moment and consider? Now, as they were eating, Jesus took bread, and after blessing it, broke it, and gave it to the disciples, and said, "Take, eat. This is my body. Let us partake." And he took a cup. And when he had given thanks, he gave it to them, saying, "Drink of it, all of you, for this is my blood of the covenant, which is poured out for many for the forgiveness of sins. I tell you, I will not drink again of this fruit of the vine until that day when I drink it new with you in my Father's kingdom." Let us partake. Would you please stand with us? Let's lift our voices in thanksgiving and praise to our God on this Good Friday.